One of the most important reforms we can achieve is the adoption of a biennial 2-year budget. I've long supported such legislation. I worked with Senator Domenici a number of years ago. He also supported it, but we never really confronted the issue and brought it up and had a full debate about it. So I thank you for your leadership in working in that regard. This may be just a year to get it done. I think there's a lot of frustration and a lot of desire for improvement, and I think we could have a bipartisan agreement, and with your leadership, we can get it done. Before I begin the discussion on that particular issue today, I'd like to give a little context. Many have said the Congressional budget process is broken. In my view, however, it's not that the budget rules won't work, but rather Congress has refused to follow the rules. Despite a legal statutory requirement that we do so, for 2 consecutive years, the Senate has simply refused to adopt the budget resolution. It's been 884 days. We're not passing appropriations bills. We're funding the government with measures or cramming all our spending bills into one big omnibus spending bill. And this is no way to run a budget or run an efficient government. Federal spending has reached nearly $4 trillion a year, and almost half of that is borrowed, over 40%. Yet the myth persists in Washington that we can manage this mammoth budget through last-minute deals struck in closed-door meetings, rushed to a vote under threat of panic and government shutdown. But we can't, and we shouldn't operate our nation's finances in this way, especially not during this time of fiscal and economic crisis that is very real, that is systemic, and I believe in a financial sense has never been greater. There's no time in our history when we can look a decade out and can see a more difficult debt financial situation than we can see today. Our constitutional system was designed, and Americans deserve an honest budget, publicly produced, with amendments offered and senators voting. Now, I know leaders don't like their troops to vote. They might have to cast tough votes, but part of the process in the Senate has always been that you have to have votes. So producing a budget is one of our most fundamental duties, and in these difficult times we should be rededicating ourselves to that commitment and in no way setting it aside. Now's the time to strengthen the budget process, not abandon it. This super committee of 12, who have some of our finest members in it, in a few months are expected to perform the duties of the entire Congress. Earlier this year, I offered a measure to make it more difficult for Congress to skirt its budget responsibilities. It would raise the threshold a bit to 60 for passing an appropriations bill before a budget has been passed. Common sense says you pass a budget, set what your spending limits are before you start spending money. So I believe this is a needed reform. The 2-year budget can help. The Senate should not spend the taxpayer's dollar without a plan. The budget should go through the regular order. Only a simple majority is required, and it should be subject to extensive amendment and debate. And we can talk about how we do that, but there is a growing frustration on the minority side that amendments are being blocked through the process of filling the tree to an unprecedented degree, and we're lacking the kind of debate on the normal processes of the Senate, and there'll be more resistance, I think, to tightening up the budget amendment process for that reason. But I strongly believe we can improve the existing system by switching to a 2-year budget cycle. This approach will make it easier to save money and perform oversight. Under the current system, an executive agency is having to begin work on a budget for next fiscal year before the current budget has even been adopted or approved. Additionally, by switching to a 2-year plan, it will be easier for agencies to reduce waste and, I do believe, plan. Our government agencies are challenged. I think they can plan better if they have more confidence in the future, what the funding will be. I think the greatest advantage offered by a two-year budget cycle is enhanced oversight, as you said, Mr. Chairman. As it is, I believe the committee does have a duty to perform careful oversight of the executive branch, but we must search through the federal government for waste, inefficiency, and overreach. We simply have to, but the adoption of a two-year budget provides a chance to make this duty more explicit and to significantly increase the committee's oversight authorities. We owe the taxpayers nothing less. In order to balance our budget, we're going to need to conduct an exhaustive search for savings. A biennial budget offers the opportunity to increase the time and resources dedicated to that task. But the process for reform will achieve little if we don't rethink and address the underlying problem, the ideology of big government. As long as Washington operates under the idea that the federal government is the first place to fix every problem that arises, then our budget will tend always to be too large, too hard to manage, and too heavy a burden on the economy. Members owe the American people more than just a strengthened budget process. They owe a strengthened commitment to the principles of limited government and individual responsibility. So we've got tough challenges ahead, but if we face them honestly and in keeping with our values, there's no doubt that our nation will thrive and prosper. I think you've got a good panel, Mr. Chairman. It's exciting to think that it could be, in maybe even months, we could have a better budget process, and I look forward to working with you on it.